Hey there, today I'm going to talk about the new take on Black Widow and her old friend Hawkeye. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this pack has me really excited for three different reasons. The first is because I'm an Avengers player, and I'm really excited for having two new options that are 3-threat and both Avengers. The second is this is the first time we've seen Atomic Mass Games do a different version of a character that is already in the game, and shows how well they can demonstrate the different aspects of a hero or villain by having different versions of them in the game. And three, I'm a really big fan of how they designed Hawkeye's character, and I'm really excited with what he can do as early as turn 1, which I'll talk about a little bit more after I cover his card. So, let's go ahead and start with that. Hawkeye has the alter ego of Clinton Barton. He has 4 stamina, moves medium, is size 2, and has a threat rating of 3. His physical defense value is 4, while his energy and mystic are both at 2. His attack and only attack is Arrow Shot. It has a range of 5 and a strength of 5 with a power cost of 0. It has 3 different abilities attached to it. The first one is one that we're all familiar with at this point. After this attack is resolved, this character gains power equal to the damage dealt. The second ability allows us to choose if this attack will be physical or energy based on its attack type, which is huge, especially having an attack that doesn't cost any power. And the final ability attached to this attack is, on a wild, it gains full quiver. The defending character will then suffer your choice of bleed, slow, shock, or poison after the attack is resolved. So that is his only attack, but obviously it's a really good attack. He then also has 3 bow and arrow superpowers, as only a man like Barton would. The first of these, and I'm not even sure if it's my favorite, is an active one called Hook Arrow. For 2 power, it allows Hawkeye to place himself within range 3 of his current position. His next superpower is also active, but this one only costs 1, Trick Shot. It allows Hawkeye's next Arrow Shot attack to ignore line of sight and doesn't allow the defending character to benefit from cover. So any target that could basically guarantee at least 1 block on an attack, Hawkeye can negate that for just 1 power. Not to mention how strong this is against a character like Rocket, who otherwise would be untargetable behind a car or dumpster. For 1 power, Trick Shot can do great work, and as for Clint's last superpower, well, it's really good too. It is a reactive power named Quick Draw that costs 2 power. When Hawkeye is targeted by an attack, and the attacker is not within range 3 of him, Clint can use this superpower. Hawkeye immediately makes an Arrow Shot attack targeting the attacking character. So if that Arrow Shot dazes or KOs the attacking character, that attack goes away, as does the rest of that activation. So it's like Venom's So Many Snacks, but before the opponent gets to attack, which is good since Hawkeye isn't nearly as durable as Venom is. Before going too much further, it is worth noting on the backside of his card that his stamina goes up to 5, but that is the only change. Hawkeye reminds me a lot of a cross between Star-Lord and Rocket. He has a really good range 5 attack with 5 dice. On a wild, he's able to apply one of several status effects. The thing that sets him apart from most of the other ranged characters is his Hook Arrow. For 2 power, not just getting to move or advance, but to place himself within range 3 is an extra 6 inches of movement that also kind of ignores terrain and doesn't take an action. This should allow Hawkeye to very consistently get 2 arrow shots off every turn, or even move into range, shoot, and hook arrow back. If your opponent is smart, they won't give you the opportunity to use fast draw too often either. But with as mobile as Hawkeye is, there is a chance that some characters or some rosters will have to try to deal with him at range, which gives Hawkeye an attack of opportunity that he should take just about every single time. What is really nice is being able to apply shocks so that the attacker is then rolling less dice into Hawkeye. Another nice bit of synergy that Hawkeye can pull off is after his last action, spending a power for Trick Shot. Because there is no other limitation on Trick Shot other than it will be used during his next Arrow Shot attack, this can be saved for a quick draw attack to help discourage any rodents with large guns, or even just let his next attack during the next round have the Trick Shot ability. So while you can't Trick Shot a fast draw every single time, it is something that Hawkeye can have prepared if you have enough power. With all of this in mind, I want to do the usual once-over of pros and cons, and then take a look at just how many tricks he can pull off on turn 1. For the pros, there are quite a few. He has a really good attack with several great abilities tied to it, and he has a ridiculously mobile character with Hook Arrow. All of his abilities are pretty cheap, so if he is able to find a good character to start shooting at, he should make for a decent power bank as well. He is a great counter to Shuri and Rocket on paper at least, and while this may seem like a con, I think it is a pro for Hawkeye, and that is that he is not a jack of all trades. He has one thing going for him, and he has put all of his eggs in that basket. Two other characters that come to mind that aren't like this are two of his competitors for 3-threat range characters, and that's Winter Soldier and Iron Man. Winter Soldier will want to be at range sometimes, just dealing out assault rifle attacks and using the got your back reactive superpower. While some of his other superpowers want him to get in close, like Spetsnaz training and Hydra tactics. The same with Iron Man, who has some high damage attacks that cost a good bit of power, and he also has some control elements, and he's tanky. Hawkeye has the one thing he is good at, and that makes him the ultimate ranged combatant. This, of course, does open him up to a few weak spots. I won't go straight to calling him a glass cannon because his 4 physical defense gives him a decent chance of blocking the most common attack type in the game, and even a better chance at dodging terrain coming his way. However, he is very, very vulnerable to energy and mystic attacks. Thankfully, I think he will be able to play keep away with most range 2 and range 3 attackers because of his Hook Arrow. However, if someone with a charge is dedicated to taking him out, it seems likely that they will be able to get to him. So, as a whole, he is a great ranged fighter, and that's about it. But I think that's okay because he is great at it. As far as affiliations go, we know that he is a member of the Defenders, but we have no idea what that leadership ability is, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind being a part of that group. And really, I can see him taking advantage of every leadership ability out there except for Asgard's. I mean, he wouldn't mind it, but because he has some built-in versatility with his movement, it opens up being able to easily shake off status conditions. As for Wakanda and the Guardians, extra consistency on his 5-dice attacks would be great, and he won't be hurting for power, so rerolls from Wakanda aren't too taxing. He has several superpowers that he would love to have the cost reduced by. Just make sure to try to use Hook Arrow before Trick Shot, otherwise you lose the reduction from the Avengers. And since he is going to play the role of a sniper trying to put out damage, he would fit nicely in the Cabal as well. The affiliation I am probably the most excited for him to be tagging along with, though, is the Avengers. Because, well, he is another 3-threat Avenger, and he will take full advantage of the leadership ability. So let's talk about some crazy turn 1 plays. Most great turn 1 plays require the use of the tactic card and for him to be in the Avengers, but even then it's really just about giving him an extra bit of power. Hawkeye with advanced R&D or anything like that. Giving him this extra bit of juice will let him be able to both pick up an extraction objective without having to pay for damages. For example, Hawkeye can double move to pick up a middle objective like a hammer and then be placed range 3 directly back. At that point, the only character in the game currently released that has a chance to attack him is Baron Zemo or another Hawkeye that is in Avengers. Unless your opponent goes in with tactic cards of their own to get some extra movement to reach him. The other nice thing here is the versatility. If Hawkeye wants to use that hammer as soon as he picks it up, you can move, Hook Arrow, pick up the objective, and then take a range 5, 6-dice attack that can usually also pinpoint a weaker defense. Then on something like Wakandan Herbs, Hawkeye is able to double move and then Hook Arrow away. Unfortunately, even with Avengers Assemble, he isn't quite capable of getting back to score points from the herb on his own, but any extra bit of movement shenanigans would be able to get him there as early as turn 2. And he makes a good herb holder because once he can get there, he can still make an impact on the battlefield with his range 5 attacks, and while he would still get the extra dice on his physical attack, it wouldn't get to count if you change the damage type to energy. One of the other things you can do without advanced R&D are just some good drop-off plays where he can move up and shoot and then get dropped off by another character. However, something I have found with my limited time with Rocket is a 5-dice attack isn't always going to do consistent damage. So one of the things I really like about Hawkeye is his ability to move off an objective, shoot at something, and then move back onto the objective. Even if that is all he is doing, and usually he will be doing more than just that, he is well worth the 3-threat in my book. But also competing for a 3-threat Avengers spot is his partner in crime, Natasha. Black Widow, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., has the alter ego of Natasha Romanoff, which you might notice that her last name is different from the normal Black Widow card we got in the core set. Atomic Mass Games addressed this in one of their streams and clarified that Marvel had asked for the name change and that the old Black Widow will be updated to have Romanoff instead of Romanova. And since this is the first time we are seeing an instance of two characters sharing the same alter ego, it is worth mentioning that they cannot be in the same roster together. So before you even come to the game table, one of these two widows has to be left behind, which will make for some very interesting decisions during your roster building. But before we get into that, let's take a look at her stats. She has 5 stamina, moves medium, and is size 2 and has a threat rating of 3. Her defenses are pretty good with 4 physical defense and 3 energy and mystical defense. Her first attack is named Automatic Pistol. It is a physical attack that has a range of 3, strength of 4, and a power cost of 0. After the attack is resolved, she will gain 1 power, and this attack will always have rapid fire. It allows her to make an additional pistol attack, but it can only target the same original target. So if Cap bodyguards it, you will get to shoot him twice. This means that bodyguard characters can pull off some sneaky stuff. The big thing is that because the second attack is a new attack, it has to meet the requirements of a normal attack. So if Widow targets someone at range 3 and Okoye bodyguards that character from range 4, that initial attack will still hit Okoye because bodyguard ignores range and line of sight restrictions. The rapid fire attack won't get to trigger though because Okoye would be out of her range for that next attack. But because this attack isn't rolling a lot of attack dice, it usually will mean Widow is getting 2 power guaranteed from a range 3 strike, which is really good, especially since she has quite a few things to spend that power on. For instance, her next attack is Tear Gas. Its range is Area 2, it also has a strength of 4, but it costs 2 power. It has 2 abilities tagged onto it, neither of which your opponent is going to appreciate. The first is that any damage done by this attack will not gain the defender's power. And the second, and even more annoying part, is that every character hit by this attack gains the poison condition. Her final attack is an energy attack called Widow's Kiss. It has a range of 2, strength of 6, and a power cost of 3. On a wild, the attack gains a push before damage is dealt, but more importantly, this attack gets to add 1 die to the attack roll for each special condition the target character has, which pairs really well with Hawkeye's quiver full of status conditions. But before we go down that road, let's cover her 3 superpowers. Her first is a reactive ability that costs 3 called Interrogate. It triggers at the start of the cleanup phase, and if she is within range 2 of 1 or more dazed enemy characters, by spending the power, you can increase the amount of victory points you score from a crisis card during the cleanup phase by 1. Her next superpower is Parting Shot. It is also reactive, but it only costs 2 power. After an attack is resolved against Widow, she can use it to deal 1 automatic point of damage to her attacker, and then she can advance away short. Her last superpower is one you should probably be familiar with if you play the core set Black Widow, and that is Stealth. Characters have to be within range 3 to target this character. So we see Stealth Return, which is just a really good power regardless that works really well with Widow's Kiss Push, and even better with Parting Shot. Parting Shot is a different take on Counter-Strike that has a lower ceiling but a much higher floor. The guaranteed damage will be really nice because even if it is only 1, that's enough to swing around when your opponent has to play around it. Not to mention when they don't have to play around it, Widow getting to maneuver out of activation is really strong, especially if it puts her outside of range 3 to activate Stealth. This is also the first time we are seeing a superpower that has the ability to gain victory points. Thankfully, it can only be used once per round, and only at the very end of the round, so unless Widow is the last one to activate, there's time to push, throw, or outright daze Widow before she can score that extra victory point. However, with multiple games I have played coming down to 1 or even 2 points, I think interrogation becomes a very real threat or consideration during the course of a game. If for no other reason it speeds up the clock in a high point game, or because it gives a crucial edge in a slower game that makes it all the way to round 6. Something worth keeping in mind for my fellow Avenger players is that there cannot be a power reduction from a day unlike any other on this ability because it is not during a turn. So it'll always cost 3 or more with jerks like Loki running around. So, pros and cons. She has a lot of versatility and a surprising amount of durability. She isn't here to be a big damage dealer like Valkyrie or Doc Ock at 3 points. She might be able to be a decent power battery for tactic cards, getting 2 power off most of her strikes is really good for that. but I think she finds herself in an interesting spot of an annoying objective player, but a completely different manner than her 2-threat version. This one is in your opponent's face, probably scoring victory points off their dazed models, and is going to be hard to knock off because of stealth, a slightly above average defense stat line, and her ability to move after being attacked. Not to mention her being able to occasionally deal out several poison tokens, or a big hit occasionally makes her quite a bit more of a threat than her 2-point counterpart, which makes sense. Corset Widow is able to just be a threat or point effective way to be holding a secure objective away from the big fight, scoring victory points. The 2 cons I have for her are that she needs to be in the mix to be effective, which seems a little counterintuitive with stealth. I think she is still able to use it to her advantage, especially with Parting Shot, and of course her attacks can ping away at enemies, but she isn't likely to be putting out large amounts of damage. But 4 dice attacks in a turn should still get some damage pushed through. As far as affiliations go, I don't think she will benefit from rerolls you can get with Guardians or Wakandans as much as her partner with a bow. But I think the power reduction from Avengers will play wonderfully with her Parting Shot ability, and an extra bit of movement from Avengers Assemble certainly wouldn't hurt. If you roll well, she can earn plenty of power with the Cabal, especially with so many attacks that hit more than one character between her Tear Gas and just normal strike. All in all, while she wasn't my first choice for our first repeat character, I think AMG has done quite well establishing how they can interpret the different sides or playstyles that a hero or villain may have. But I am still holding out hope for a new Iron Man suit sooner than later. Before we wrap this up, I do think it is worth mentioning that the tactic card that was revealed on stream, Professionals. It is an unaffiliated active tactic card. Both Natasha Romanoff, which means either of the 2 Black Widows because of the upcoming errata, and Clinton both have to pay 2 power. Then if Hawkeye deals damage to a character that is within range 2 of Nat, you can move 1 civilian or asset token from the damaged character to Natasha. It doesn't let you hold more of a type of token than what the crisis says, so no holding more than 1 spider infected, for instance. However, it does allow you to snag your opponent's herb from them, even if you can't score it. It plays perfectly with what our new Widow wants to do, being close to an enemy that is hopefully getting dazed to interrogate them, and this puts icing on the cake by taking an asset in the process. Or if you're just getting that damage in there, maybe doing this and then booking it with Widow to get her out of there. Regardless, it is a really cool tactic card that plays into what both of these characters are wanting to do anyways. So if you're planning on putting these 2 on the board for 6th threat, try the card out and see how it does. Probably my favorite thing about it is that they don't have to be too close together to use it. So the biggest restriction that most other duo cards have disappears and makes this card one of the more playable ones in my opinion. And you can even tune your list with extraction objectives that only have 1 token, like Kree Power Core or the Skrull Infiltrator, or even the Wakandan Herbs to really annoy your opponent. That's all I have for today's video. If you have any questions about the rules or other stuff MCP related, feel free to message me here on YouTube or Facebook, or even just leave it down in the comments below. What I would love to see down in the comments below though is which one of these 2 is going to see your roster, or maybe even both of them. Anyways, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.